We're rolling.
Let's roll. You look like such a DJ with those headphones on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
DJ Funky Flex.
There we are.
DJ Whitey One Nut. DJ Uno.
DJ Uno in the house. All right. So you guys are back to another episode of the Ask a Man series, and today we've got a good one here. We're going to be talking about something that I think is on the minds of a lot of guys. It's all about changing your career up. And Brandon, you've had some experience with this. I've had some experience with this. You have some current experience with this, actually. So,
yeah.
So you're actually changing from a recent change to another change. So how old are you again?
I'm 37.
You're 37. And you mentioned, I think, in episode 1, a couple of different careers that you've had. You've been a police officer. You've done some stuff with a bank. You've had some real estate stuff that you're doing. What are you doing now?
So currently, I sell life insurance, and I do that for a standard IMO, independent marketing organization, and it's very straightforward: mortgage protection and final expense. So people want to cover the mortgage if they kick the bucket, and people that want to have enough money to put them in the dirt when they die and not burden their families. And you mentioned that I used to be a police officer, and I kind of stumbled on this company that I'll be going to work for, and they sell exclusively to first responders. And as soon as I saw this opportunity, I was like, holy crap, I have to go after this. Like, this is ideal. And then I showed it to my wife, and she was like, holy crap, you have to go after this. This is ideal.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what I'm doing. So I'm actually currently in flux, and this question really hits close to home for me because I've had a lot of jobs, a lot of careers, and I'll be straight up with you. I haven't had a ton of success. Like, I was in real estate. I got into real estate in 2004, and had a really good ride until 2008, 2009, went out of business, lost a house in foreclosure. And in the process of that, I was able to keep my finances together until I started the police academy and got picked up by a police department because you can't be a cop if you got bad credit. So yeah. All my negative credit stuff hit after I became a police officer, lost a house in foreclosure, and really struggled on a meager salary for 5 years. We rented a house from my mom that was just, exponentially below market rate rent, and just made it work for the time that I was there, and got an opportunity to get into anti-money laundering investigation at a bank, and just what a horrible existence. Sitting inside in a cubicle looking at screens all day is just not my jam. I like to be moving. I like to be interacting with people. I like to be outside. I like, like if I could have supported my family as a police officer, I would have continued to do that. But it just, you want to provide a certain level of lifestyle for your kids, and just that job, at least in this area, was not conducive to that long term. Even if I'd have gotten promoted a couple of times, I still wouldn't have made enough money to have the things that I want to have for my family. So,
no, it's good. And I'll give you guys my story as well here in a second. For those who aren't familiar, let me read. I kind of got ahead of myself. Let me read the question. This comes from Ronald, actually. Ronald says, "I'm in a job and a career I do not like. Like you," he's talking to me. I want to do something with my life that has purpose and meaning and that I'm passionate about. Where do I begin? How do I start? I'm 54 and have a family. So, Ronald's a bit ahead of the age, area than where we are, but still the process looks kind of the same.
Still got a family, still got bills to pay.
Yep. I'll tell you guys a little bit about my journey. So, I've discussed this a little bit, but just in case you guys haven't heard it, got married at 18, went to the military for a couple of years, got out, landed here in Charlotte, and I started working with computers, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I just had some inkling that this was kind of more of where I wanted to go. At the time, when I was in my 20s, I really enjoyed this more cerebral exercises, that kind of the work of figuring out problems and that kind of stuff. As I got older, though, especially right when I hit my 30s and really in my mid 30s, got really strong passion to start helping people more than just solving solutions. And I also, all the enthusiasm that I had for working on computers and getting into technology and learning how to write code and all that kind of stuff had really started to wane, and it just wasn't there anymore. And I knew that I operated best where I had some passion and some oomph behind what I was doing. And so I used, kind of like you, Brandon, I was sitting in front of a computer pretty much all day long. It wasn't doing my health any favors. It wasn't doing my manly mojo any favors. And I would go to the windows sometimes and I would look down at the guys doing construction outside, and I would think, if I could just spend just an hour just, working the crane or out there just,
I got jealous of the guys cutting the grass at my office. I was like, that doesn't look that bad.
I know. No, it looks great.
$9 an hour. All right, back to work.
Yeah. So it was in a similar position where I had a nice job. It was cushy, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I began this sort of, I didn't really know at the time. I wouldn't have called myself an entrepreneur, but I really, looking back on it, I had very much the entrepreneurial spirit. I was always doing something on the side to try and make more money or try to make something happen. You've kind of got the similar kind of passions, Brandon, in that way. And so I began Wolf and Iron, and it really just kind of started with me writing some blog articles whenever I could, usually during my lunch break. And that sort of grew. Wolf and Iron doesn't make any money today. So, I mean, even today, except for a little bit that it makes off of the store, it really doesn't make any money. And I've been doing this for 4 some odd years now. But then I started Rustic in Maine, which is this ring making business that just took off like a shot. And so that was the one that kind of landed. And last June, so it's February now as we're recording this, but last June I quit my job as a software developer to come in my home and make rings full time. So, and now we've got a team of, 8, 9 people, something like that. We're growing as a company.
That's so awesome.
We're busting at the seams. Yeah. So it's just really taken off. But that transition is really a challenging thing. And I would say, to Ron's, questions, where do I begin? You start off by identifying the fact that you don't like what you're doing now, but you need to figure out what it is that you want to do. And where a guy's going to feel that he's significant and he's making an impact, it's going to be where his talents and his values and his passion all intersect. So where those 3 things line up, and you may have a couple of different areas in life where those things intersect, but your talents, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and what you value, and that's really the most important one. Are you working on something where you feel like if you make an impact in that area, that you're making a significant impact in the world? And so that's got to align. Those 3 things have got to align. And so I would say that's where you got to begin, to figure out what it is you want to do next. And I think that's just it's wide open. I mean, it could be anything. We'll kind of get more into that, but Brandon, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Don't jump too soon. I watched you get this thing running, and I stalk you on Facebook a little bit. I know we don't interact too much.
That's nice.
Face to face, but I've kind of watched your path over the last few years, and I feel like you did it the right way. Like, you waited until going to your job was costing you money.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I was working at the bank, dude, like, I was like, all right, I sold a couple policies. Here's my notice. I'm out of here. And, that really, really caused my family a lot of problems. And I take a lot of crap from people because of how I make decisions, because like we talked about in the last episode, I'm driven by emotion. I'm driven by, okay, this sucks. There's something that works. I'm going to go do it instead of, build up a savings and a reserve and, get really good at something before you are like burning your ships. Like, who was it? Cortez it takes the island, burns the ship. So, you win or you die.
Yeah.
And, that was actually my desktop background at the bank. On my computers was these ships that were fully engulfed in flames. And people were like, what the heck does that mean? It's like, you'll find out here in a little bit. You'll know in about a week. Anyhow, so there's a lot to be said for having the gumption to go after something, but there is also a lot to be said for doing it intelligently. and seeking a multitude of counsel. And I didn't do anything. I was like, hey, I'm done. I'm out of here. This sucks. I can't stand it. Blah, blah, blah. Cash in the 401k and hit the road. Stupid. Completely stupid. I accept that. I own that. I'm not trying to say that the way that I did it was the way to do it. But I also look at people that they're still there. They're still miserable. They're still complaining about the same things they were complaining about a year ago. And I'm like, if I got to be one of those two guys, either myself or them, that, you know, you're going to retire from this organization and you're going to die 3 years later because of the stress and the stupidity and the lack of physical activity and just all this stuff piled up on you over a lifetime, I'll do things the way that I do them.
Yeah.
Every time, every day of the week. Cause, you know, now fortunately for you, Ron, the guy that's considering all this, there's a middle ground. Go after it, but you're going to have to bust your butt and work both jobs. And, you know, you're going to have your spouse and your kids understand, okay, you know, for 6 months, you're not going to see a whole lot of me.
Yep.
And here's why, so that I can be the master of my own. I don't know what industry this guy's thinking about getting into. I don't know what he's passionate about, but you know, it takes sacrifice and it's going to suck for your family. But I think the reward is worth the risk. And fortunately for me, you know, I've got a lot of stupid luck in my favor, and I've stumbled into something that I know I'm going to be excellent at. I know it's going to be financially rewarding, and I know it plays to all my skill sets.
Yeah.
You know, I love public speaking. I love first responders. I love, you know, I believe in life insurance because, you know, my dad died without any life insurance, no savings, whatever, and really screwed our family. Not intentionally, obviously, but I get the value of the product. I care for the people that I will be servicing, and, you know, it plays to all my skill sets.
Yeah. It seems like it was made for you.
That's what I said.
And that's the thing, you know, like, right, your talents, your passions, your values, they start to line up and you find something that fits that. And kind of to your point, I think that there is something to be said about a soul crushing, just exhausting job that you're in, where you can't even, it just wears you down during the day so much that you have just a really difficult time thinking about what's the next thing that I want to do. Yeah. And so I think there is opportunity probably to maybe within the same field, just get out of that job and move into something, maybe a different company that's doing something similar, but just in a better atmosphere. So think about those steps. Before I went to my last employer, which was Cardinal Solutions, great company to work for, actually based out of Ohio. And so where you'll be heading up to. But great company to work for, consulting company, very, you know, kind of a small company, small feel. But before that, I was working with Wells Fargo, you know, bank, and it was just the big bank experience, right? And before we got to be Wells Fargo, it was a little bit more fun, but still, it's that corporate kind of world. And so my step of getting out of that was moving from the big banking world, or from that big corporate world, into a smaller company, and just kind of working that for as long as I could, and really enjoyed myself while I was there. I was no longer in a place where I just hated my job or anything like that. I just didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So if you can get to that place where you've got some stability, also some flexibility, and you have the opportunity to think about what it is that you want to do, really begin to ask yourself those questions, and you have the flexibility to kind of start acting on that. Maybe that flexibility means you got to get up at 4:30 in the morning and do some stuff, or you have to work on the weekends for whatever this side project thing is. If it depends if you're trying to do another career or if you're trying to do your own thing. But figure out what that is, and it's probably going to take some training, especially if it's not in the industry that you're in now. But you can have those transitional kind of steps there. And
that would have been good advice for me too, because when I was working for Citibank, it was just very dysfunctional, very corporate. I'm sure you're familiar. Mm-hmm. And if maybe I would have transitioned to another, and this is what my wife was actually telling me, go to another bank, transition to another role at another institution, and, you know, that would have given me maybe some breathing room to where I wouldn't have made such a rash decision. But when I started thinking about, you know, I wasn't suicidal, but when I started thinking about, like, if I died, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Like, you know, I got life insurance, my kids will be taken care of, blah, blah, blah. But, like, yeah, that's the thoughts that were going through my head. And then I saw a friend that was doing life insurance, and I talked to him on the phone, and I was like, man, I'm doing this. And I think I would have made a better decision and gone about the whole process better if I would have done something similar to what you did, working for a smaller company and just have a little bit more of a, I don't know, a little bit less soul crushing, as you put it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I want to talk about a little bit about the age here. So Ron's 54 years old. I know there's a lot of guys out there that are in that kind of age bracket. And what they're seeing is, and I'm taking this from an entrepreneurial kind of viewpoint, they're seeing a lot of opportunity coming available. They go on Instagram, they go on Facebook, they see stuff and they go, man, here's a guy that's, my age and he's, making knives in his backyard and he's selling them on Instagram, right? And he's getting all kinds of crazy business. Or here's a guy that's making, cutting boards, in his shop and he's selling these things and he's got,
Toph.
Yeah, like Topher. And he's got, there's a guy we know and not tofu. We didn't say tofu.
Christopher. He goes by Topher.
Yeah. That's just killing it, right? And they got more orders than they know what to do with. And similar thing that happened with me in Rustic in Maine. And so you get to this point and you're like, okay, I'm this age. There's a bit of a curve in terms of maybe the technology and that kind of stuff. But there's another aspect of this. And I wanted to make it apparent for you guys who are younger that don't get this yet. When you're in your 20s and you think, you kind of think like this. I'm going to do this career, or not even a career. I'm going to do this job for 5-6 years. And if I don't like it, I'll stop and I'll do something else. Then you get into your 30s and you think, okay, it's time to get serious about whatever my career is. And when you get into your 40s and beyond, you begin to kind of see that there is an end to things, right? That at some point you're going to, and I'm not saying 65 is when you should stop working. I don't believe in that at all, but
good luck if you want to do
that. You do start to sort of quantify things and you go, okay, if I choose this path, so let's say Ron, he's 54 years old. He says, I'm going to choose this path. There's not a lot of opportunity to, stop, redo something else, make different changes, right? Depends on how much training and education that's necessary to go down this new road.
Yeah. His question wasn't specific enough. I could use a little bit more information.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's probably okay because this is sort of for everybody, but Ron, you got the challenge here for you, buddy, is that you're going to be making a decision that's probably going to, maybe impact the rest of your life type of thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't be 65 and then say, this wasn't the right thing and it won't lead into something else. Absolutely you can. But I really just kind of want to put that on the table for you guys to think about when you're in your 20s and your 30s and you're thinking, well, I can, I'll get married down the road or I'll make another decision down the road. At some point, that road starts to get shorter and your decisions become more like, what do I really want to do for the rest of my life type of things. And I think that's kind of where Ron is and kind of making that decision.
Well, if everybody did what they want to do for the rest of their lives, we'd all be sitting on the beach.
True.
Not doing anything. So it's what impact do I want to have on the world? How do I want to be remembered? What do I want people to say at my funeral, which is very trite and it's been played out. But like, that's the way I look at the world. Like, I want to have an impact on this place. And for me, sitting in a cubicle was not doing that. And, this new career, I don't think I'm definitely going to interact with a lot more people, but I'm not going to have this massive impact on the world, but it's going to afford me the opportunity to have a greater impact on the world, if that makes sense. So I was making $70,000 a year working for a bank, and I'm like, that's just barely treading water when you got a wife and 4 kids.
Yep.
But I made $37,000 a year as a police officer, so I doubled my income. And I think this guy, Ron, he's either a risk taker or he's not, because there's risk involved in all of this. But don't ever go into something looking at the outcome that somebody has afforded. Like, I could look at you and say, wow, Mike's got a lot of stuff going on in his business in 2018. And like, there's a lot of really great things happening for him. And it's easy to see that and completely overlook the hours and hours of struggle and hard work and thinking and figuring it out and, doing things that you're writing books at your lunch break at your job and waking up early and going to bed late and working weekends and the sacrifices. Like, people don't look at that stuff. Everybody in America seems to just want to look at the outcome and say, yep, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go make wooden rings in my garage.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, stupid. Look at all the effort that it took to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I commend you for what you have done and what you have built. And, despite what politicians will say, you did build that.
Yeah.
And you didn't do that yourself.
Thanks, brother.
But, so I think it's awesome. And, if I was more industrious with my hands or something like that, I would definitely be taking a page from your playbook, because I'm really inspired by what you've done.
Yeah.
But it doesn't play to my skill set. So I'm going to go do something different. So know yourself, be willing to take a risk, but don't ever underestimate what it took for the people that you're looking at to get to where they are. And all throughout my life, I've been enchanted by the outcome. And it was really just recently that I started to look at, okay, what did it take for these people to get as good at whatever they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot. It's way more than most people estimate. And then, like Colonel Sanders started KFC in his 70s. This guy, obviously, he's got a bit of a hiccup with his age. He's 54. Don't let that stop you. If you've got this, don't let that stop you. If you're going to let that stop you, you're going to fail, because don't allow yourself excuses. Say, this is the outcome I'm going to get, and nothing is going to stop me. If you're not that committed, if that's not your mindset, don't bother, because you're going to fail.
Yep.
And I've gone about things. I've half-assed a lot of stuff in my life. I half-assed my real estate career. And I said, 2008 happened, so I'll just fold up and go, I'll go be a police officer. Now, thank God I did, because it led me to where I am right now. But if I had had more gumption, more fight, more grit, there are real estate agents who survived that, and they're much more successful now than they were before, because they fought through the storm and everybody else was laid to waste. I was laid to waste. I was competition for them, and now I'm not. So you have to be committed to the process. You have to be committed to the outcome. You can't just, I'll try this. If it works, great. If it doesn't, that's not the way the world works.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to fight and struggle and bleed and cry and suffer for what you want in this world. And, I look at myself right now. I am not successful, but I know I'm going to be, because thank God I found something that plays to my skill set. It plays to my passion. It plays to, the things that I care about, and I'm going after it, and I'm going after it with reckless freaking abandon. I'm not stopping. And, like I often hear people in life insurance talk about, well, how many calls do I need to make until I book 20 appointments a week? And I'm like, don't stop at a number. Stop at 20 appointments. That's when you stop dialing the daggum phone. When you've got 20 appointments booked, that's when you stop dialing. So don't say I'm going to dial 500 dials or have 20 appointments booked. No, I'm going to be on the phone until I've got 20 appointments booked.
Yeah.
That's how you become successful. And dialing the phone sucks. Like, it sucks. It's horrible. It's the worst part of the job, but it's necessary. So, yeah. And also, I'm sorry, kind of long-winded. If you want to jump in here, go for it.
If it sucks, we'll edit it out. It's totally fine.
Oh, man, it's such a burden now. I feel like so encumbered. Anyhow, I want to talk a little bit about.
A lot?
I want to talk, you can edit that out. I want to talk a little bit about what society says versus what actually works.
Okay.
Society says, get a college degree and you'll be successful. There's so much proof to the opposite of that. It's not even funny.
Yep.
There are so many people with MBAs and minors in underwater basket weaving that are just, they're jobless. Now, maybe not right now because the job market is really good, but if you're hanging your hat on a freaking piece of paper and you think that's going to bring you success, you are sadly mistaken. Like, almost all of the opportunity right now for the average kid is in the trades. Like, if you could learn to be an HVAC tech or an electrician, a plumber, whatever, and those jobs are so looked down upon. And I love Mike Rowe, the guy from Dirty Jobs.
Yep.
And I think his outlook on the world, now he's wildly successful in not these careers, but I think he's got a lot of wisdom when it comes to going after a job. Like, look for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I've got 3 boys that they're old enough that I can kind of see where they're going to be going in life.
Yeah.
And my oldest son, I think, would be a fantastic lawyer, unfortunately. And my middle son, if he really doesn't like school and he loves to work. Like if I'm outside splitting firewood or cutting the grass or raking leaves or whatever, like he is all about it. I'm like, this kid is built to work with his hands. Yeah. But there's also a component where you could own the business that does the work with the hands. And you know who who people like to work for? They like to work for people who are willing to get in the trenches with them and freaking work.
That's right.
So I'm like, okay, so maybe a business degree for him and, get him around some mentors that, I've got an uncle that he's the richest person I know, multi-millionaire, made his fortune digging ditches. Like he does underground utilities, and now he lives on a 17-acre peninsula on a lake in a 7,000 square foot house right outside of Charlotte. So wildly successful by getting down in the trenches and busting his hump. And he's in his 50s, and we just happen to be working on something, a family project, and he still works harder than anybody his age for sure, and pretty much almost anybody that was out there. So don't discount the trades. Don't look for where the opportunity is. Like, where is there opportunity? And if you've got a kid that wants to learn how to weld, let the kid learn how to weld. He'll have a job for the rest of his life.
Yep.
Like, technology is great and all that stuff, but we will forever be fusing pieces of metal together with electricity. Like, that's not going away. So, and I know a guy in a town that I grew up with. He's a millionaire. He owns a welding shop. So I think, a lot of people in our society just look down on these blue collar careers as, oh yeah, you're better than that. Well, if your quote unquote better than that is to get a degree in psychology, you're an idiot. Yeah. Like, straight up. You get a 4-year degree in psychology. Congratulations. You're qualified to work at Starbucks now. Like, it just does not make any sense.
And I would say too, kind of, adding on to that, don't be afraid of how much of a change, your new thing that you want to do is from the old thing, right? You guys got to understand, it's strange for me to tell people that I was writing software, right? The people who knew me writing software as a developer and in the computer field for 15 years, to say, well, now I do woodworking, right? Basically, I make rings. That's a drastic change. Like, it's not just like I'm doing software for myself or I have a software company, right? That would kind of make more sense. But I found something that I wanted to do that was completely different, right? Even the Wolf and Iron blog stuff. You guys got to understand, I'm doing this for free right now, essentially. And actually, no, I'm not. I'm actually paying money to make this happen, to do this very podcast, to do the blogs, to do all that kind of stuff. Why? Because I have a passion about it and I love it, right? At some point, it's going to make money. I'm not even worried about that. But you got to think about just how drastic of a change this is from sitting in a cube all day, writing code, and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of great things that I took from my software development world. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point. But in terms of how to run a business, how to make things work and that kind of stuff. But it's very different. But you can't be afraid of that. There's nothing in life that says that you've got to continue down the same path that you've been doing. And the passions that you had when you were in your 20s or 30s are going to be different than when you're in your 40s and 50s. That's the way it's supposed to be. And we actually have an environment in the U.S. and around the world a good bit, where you can actually make these drastic changes and do things. You can go into a totally different career. It doesn't have to be anything related to what you've been doing, because people are looking for qualified guys. Let me tell you something, especially if you're 54 years old out there, you've got something that a lot of people have been looking for, or you may have something. I'm just guessing from the generation that's difficult to find in some of the younger generations. You've got manners, you've got the ability to speak. I hope you have these qualifications. This is what people are looking for. And if
not only that, but you got your head out of your ass.
You got your head out of your ass, right? Yeah.
Come on.
You're not trying. You just want to come in, do a good day's work, and go home, be with your family or something like that. I'm telling you, as an employer, and even before I was an employer, just trying to find candidates that had their head on straight is such a challenge. If you got that going for you, people are willing to train. People are willing. They just want people of good character to come in and do the work. And so don't be afraid of making a big change. I talked to a guy actually the other day. I just met him, but he's part of a group that I'm in called C12. He's been tremendously successful as a chiropractor and doing some kind of sales in the medical kind of world, right? but it's just kind of realized that's just not what he wants to do. I think he's about 47 or so, and he's just got this real passion for making furniture. And he's got this big barn because he's, like I say, he's been successful. He's got land. He's got some stuff. He's got this big barn. Had these big cedar beams out there. Don't know where they came from. He had them milled down, and he's going to make something out of them, right? And I'm telling this guy, man, just go for it, because when you lock into something like that, you don't have to have a plan necessarily of how you're going to make money. But put your passion in place, let people see your talent, and as long as it aligns with your values, and you're going to find some kind of way to monetize that thing. And once again, I'm talking from an entrepreneurial standpoint. You could do some similar things as a career, as a job. And so just don't be afraid to just follow those passions, and you've got to make the time for it. And I'll give you guys an example here. Sort of ties into this. Years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, Tim Hurley, actually gave me this advice. So another mutual friend of Brandon and mine, ours, mine's, us's.
Us's, I think is the correct vernacular there.
A mutual friend of ours, and he said this. So we're talking about getting out of debt, and he said, Mike, you got to come down to this. He said, you've either got to accept the fact that you're someone who always has debt, and you're always going to be making a monthly payment, and that's just the way your life is going to be. Or you're going to have to make a change. You're going to have to be one of two people, because you can't be in this sort of limbo state. Like, I wish I didn't have debt, but not willing to make the changes to get out of debt type of thing. Mm-hmm. And you got to do the same thing with your career. You've got to either decide that I'm going to be the kind of person that's just, I work a job. Maybe it's not the best job in the world, but I do it because of the security, for the comfort, rather than maybe the reward. And I'm just going to sell myself to that particular thing and just be okay with that, because there's nothing wrong with having a 401k and having a job, even if it's not the best thing in the world. Or you're going to have to be the other guy. And the other guy looks like somebody who actively makes decisions to change that situation. But you cannot stay in the middle. You cannot sit there saying, I wish I had a different career. I wish things were different, and never make a change, because what'll happen is when you get to be 85, 100, we'll say technology is going to kick off, 140 years old and you're on your deathbed.
I think we're going the opposite direction. But
we might be. When you're on your deathbed and those years are really winding down, you're going to think there's going to be a lot of regret there, because that passion is still going to be alive. And you're going to think, if I had only done something, what if I had only just, gone after that passion? What would things have been like? How would things have been different? So don't stay in limbo. Either decide you're going to be the guy that just has a corporate job and just does the thing, and then find your joy in other things like, your family and vacations and whatever else, or be the person who actively makes a change, but don't stay in that middle ground.
That's solid, man. That is solid. And I'll be honest, like, I kind of have to.
You going to disagree with me?
No, I don't. I don't disagree with you. I'm all about it. I'm a boat burner, baby. But like, you got to get your mind right. Like, when I was working in this cubicle farm, I was like put on this project, and it was the most repetitive, mundane, just soul sucking, mind numbing, like. A robot literally could do this. Like, if I had somebody like you could have designed a macro for Microsoft Excel that could have done exactly what I was doing for 10 hours a day. Yeah. And I was like, I got to do something. I'm going crazy. And, but I was fairly new, and I was like trying to impress my boss and trying to climb the ladder and all that crap. And it all worked out. Like, I did climb the ladder, but damn ladder was against the wrong building. But anyhow, I was like, man, I'm just going crazy. So I literally opened YouTube and put in the word motivation and just started listening to motivational speeches and content and just all this different stuff to kind of make me realize, okay, just get your mind right. Like, I think people operate on this default setting of, I'm just going to go with the flow. Like, they're Napoleon Hill calls them drifters. Yeah. And like, if you want to make something happen, you can't be a drifter. You have to start each day with a purpose, a stated outcome, a plan. And you can't just be floating around on the wind, because you're not going to end up where you want to be. And you're going to die with all that regret and all that just remorse and sad. Like, I can't imagine it. Like, I can't imagine. Like, I look at the management at the bank, like where I used to work, and I'm like, your life is so sad. Like, you care so much about this company that would replace you in a week if you died. Yep. Like it's so sad. So get your mind right.
Get your mind right.
Get your mind right.
Along that lines, I wanted to talk about something, and I'm going to do another podcast episode dedicated to this, but it's about limiting beliefs. And some of these limiting beliefs tell us things like we shouldn't be so successful, or that it's wrong to pursue success, or that it's wrong to make a big career change, or that if I've got a college education and thus and so, or, you know, if my degree is in this or that, then I should pursue that for the rest of my life, and I can't make any changes. Otherwise, that whole college experience was a waste. You know, we've got all these limiting beliefs. And I'll give you guys some insight into some of mine and that I've had to overcome. I had some limiting beliefs about success and like how much money is okay to make, how much, you know, should I charge, you know, for a product and those kinds of things. But I had even limiting beliefs on, to myself, where I had to give myself permission, essentially, to be a good leader, to be a business maker, to be an entrepreneur. There were these aspects of my character that I could kind of instinctively believe that I would be good at. But I really kind of held back because I think there was just some limiting beliefs there that's not for me. My family doesn't do that. That's not how we operate. Yarbroughs don't have success in this kind of way. And it's kind of weird how it showed up. And I'll give you guys a quick example of how I first noticed some limiting beliefs in my life. And it's got nothing to do with business. It actually has to do with acting. So years ago, I was in a couple of different plays. The first one I did was Scrooge, and I got to play the role of Scrooge. And before we did this play, I had to try out for it, right? I've never done any kind of professional acting stuff. I've just been a goofball most of my life, and just different voices and, you know, caricatures and joking around and that kind of thing. But I believed internally that I was actually a good actor. Like, I thought if I did this, I would actually be pretty good at it. For the people who knew me, they, especially as an adult, they would have said just the opposite. Because especially back then, before I got into podcasting and things like that, I really had more of a dry, monotone kind of voice. I was very introverted. I mean, I was a nice guy. I liked to joke around and that kind of stuff. I did okay with leading things, but I didn't wear my emotions on my sleeve, right? But then again, guys, that's why they call it acting, because you're not supposed to be yourself. But I knew internally that this was something that I could actually be good at, and I had to give myself permission to go and be that guy. And so when I did it, I did the audition, got the part, played the role, you know, did a really good job from what I hear, and I did a couple of other different things after that. Did you see me acting Scrooge at all?
I did not.
Okay. So
sorry.
My take on it is that I did an awesome job, and I was tremendous. You know, it involved some singing as well. So I did that. But
now I got to see this. Is there a recording of this?
There is a recording.
Okay, I want to see it.
It's pretty grainy, but the audio is okay.
That's okay.
I got some pictures I'll show you. But I did this role, and it was sort of like I had to give myself permission to be that guy, that was okay to be successful. And I still have to remind myself it's okay to be the guy who's in charge of things, that leads and makes final decisions. And you've got to figure out for yourself where your limiting beliefs are and what they are. Are they telling you that, you know, if you're 54 years old and you've been in a career for most of your life, you've got to stay the course? Maybe your limiting beliefs are that you're not good enough for, you know, these passions that you have. Maybe you don't believe that you have enough talent to be of value to the world. Whatever the case is, you guys got to root those things out, and they will always look like some sort of internal governor that says, despite what other people are telling you that you're good at, and that what you should go for, and despite even logically what you may, you know, if somebody else was in your shoes, you'd give them advice on this. It kind of like holds you back and says, nope, you can't do that. It's not for you. That's limiting belief. And I would say crush those things, get rid of those things, and just assume the road is wide open for you. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to be, and just go at it with reckless abandon. Well, not reckless. Go at it with some abandon, but, you know, be wise about it.
Be reckless. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. And if you've got limiting beliefs and you voice those limiting beliefs, you will have so much affirmation that you're right about believing that about yourself.
That's right.
By all of the other candy asses that are around you that are afraid to take a chance on themselves.
Yep.
So if I would have told people at the bank, no, actually I did tell people at the bank, and I got a bunch of people going against what I wanted to do. Well, what about security and your pension and your 401k and your benefits? I'm like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. And like, well, you know, you really got to think about it. And I'm like, I did. I thought about it. I'm good to go. Now, like I said before, ultimately I did things the wrong way, but I still would have done the same thing. I probably just would have done it at a slower pace. But if you've got a limiting belief and you want someone to agree with you, all you got to do is voice it. People will agree with you all day long. If you don't have limiting beliefs and you're able to overcome those limiting beliefs, just don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it with the wrong people.
Yeah.
Like,
don't get other people's advice on your own limiting beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, if you're afraid to make a decision or something like that, you'll get a ton of people that'll agree with you.
Yep.
It's when you find somebody that disagrees with you and says, "No, I think you could do that. I think you should take the chance. I think you should dive. I think you're doing it the right way." I think, you find somebody like that, that's your new friend.
Yep.
That's the person you spend your time around, because those people are rare. And I don't know. Everybody's so scared.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
And that's, the vast majority of people that you meet will never, ever, ever consider doing seriously consider doing half the things that very successful people do. That means taking the risk, switching careers.
Yeah.
The stuff that you've done, Brandon, I mean, as far as, career hopping, some people would look at it like that.
Oh yeah. I look at it like that.
You're pursuing, but you're pursuing a path. I mean, you're figuring out, I'm on this road. I don't know exactly what it is, where it's going to lead.
Yeah.
But I know if I'm not on the right path, right?
And like this path, like I went to comedy school because I love being on stage in front of people and making people laugh. Like, I did that because I thought that was what I wanted to do. And I pursued public speaking. Like, I was the president of a Toastmasters club because I love being in front of people. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what it was all going to add up to. I had no idea that this was all going to culminate with, this opportunity that I'm pursuing now. But I don't know that I don't know that I've necessarily pursued something as much as I've avoided misery. But either way, I've never been afraid to act.
Yeah.
And I probably should have been a little bit more afraid to act in some of the situations, but I got faith it's all going to work out, man.
Yeah.
That's
good. All right, Ronald, Mr. Ron.
I'm going to start calling you Ronbo if you make a change.
Hopefully that's helpful for you, and hopefully it's helpful for you other guys too that are kind of in this position of wanting to do something different with your life. Guys, it's totally normal. You don't want the same things in your 40s and your 30s that you do in your 20s usually. If nothing else, you mature in wanting to make more of an impact instead of just wanting to make your mark. And so hopefully this is good for you guys. As always, you can send questions to us at wolfandiron.com/ask-a-man. So head over there. There's a little form you can fill out, ask whatever questions you got. It could be about anything. It could be about politics. It could be about stuff going on in your marriage. It could be about career stuff. It could be about theology, religion, anything like that. Brandon and I will take it apart and we'll do our best to give you a solid answer. That's it. Thanks, guys.